Hello everyone, this is Dr. Geri Puleo, the President and CEO of Change Management Solutions, and I'd like to welcome you to this video on what networking is and isn't. What exactly is networking? Well, networking isn't just talking to someone, because you can talk to anyone at any time about just about anything, but that isn't necessarily a networking conversation. The big thing with networking is that both parties are engaged in trying to find mutual benefits in continuing the conversation and building relationships with one another. So, in other words, networking is talking with someone via two-way communication. You're listening and receiving and asking questions, and they're doing the same to you. Networking is not talking at someone or giving them a sales pitch. Now think back to a recent networking event you may have attended. I'm sure you probably know the person who is running around the room in what I call glad handing. Now, what is glad handing? This is having a business card in one hand, the other hand outstretched to shake your hand, but you never really get a good conversation going. They usually introduce themselves, say what they do, and immediately delve into what it is they want. And then rather than really listening to your response, they then go off to the next person because they're trying to build the number of business cards or contacts that they have. That's talking at someone. And I think you'll agree that most people don't like to be talked at, but we do like to talk with someone who is listening to what we have to say. And listening is critical in networking. Sometimes when you're networking, you can actually see through their body language that they're just waiting until you finish what you're saying so that it can be their turn to speak. Well, that's pretty obvious to anybody who's been involved in a situation like that. But listening is something that is very active and it focuses on understanding what the other person is saying, which means you're not just going to hear them, but you're going to follow up and ask questions so you build a dialogue. If you're just sitting there waiting for them to finish so you can finally tell them what you want to tell them, that isn't good networking practice. And what this leads to is that true networking, the type of networking that builds relationships and confidence and trust and mutual benefit, is essentially other focused rather than self-focused. In other words, you're not talking to someone just because you think they might be able to do something for you, but instead you're focusing on understanding what they do, what they need, and how you can help and potentially collaborate with them. So networking isn't just talking. So when we talk about this idea of networking, um, it has to do with the people who are in your network. A lot of people are on Facebook. In fact, I think just about everybody is on Facebook. But did you notice that all the people who you're connected with are called your friends? Do you really know them well enough to say that you are my friend? The people in a network, in other words, are not just a group of people. So it's not just people on Facebook or people in your trade association or even the people that you work with, but instead, the people in a network have a mutual desire to create win-win outcomes and interactions. In other words, the parties in the network focus on helping each other succeed. Now, in order to do that, you have to listen because you need to understand what the other person is doing, what they're good at, what they might need help with. And this creates vulnerability and an emotional connection. And if you have that kind of emotional connection with someone, then you're going to be much more willing to help them to succeed. And the same goes true with the people that you were talking about, that they will be more willing to help you succeed if they really trust, respect, and have an emotional connection with you. And this leads to the balance in a network. And what I'm talking about with balance has to do with the needs that you're hoping that this network is going to satisfy. It is not one-sided where you're taking but not giving. In other words, it's like many people who use LinkedIn only when they're looking for a job or they're in sales and they're looking for a new client. But that's not effective networking. Instead, the balance in a network is built upon the mutual exchange of information, ideas, and support. So if you have someone in your network whom you trust and you have a question about a particular organization where they work, you're going to ask them for information about that company so that you can better understand it. You're probably going to ask for and respect the ideas that they have on how you can best work with that company. And you're going to be receiving this in a supportive manner. Now, the balance in a network can only be created over time because there is a history of mutual support that builds the trust. And how do you build this balance? Well, that's about the timing. As I said before, it's networking is not just a one-time event or interaction. How many times have you gone to a networking event and you have business cards or you have contacts that are now in your smartphone, and for the life of you, you can't figure out who that person is, and if you didn't take notes, where you even met them. But instead of these one-time events or interactions, true networking is based on ongoing and consistent interactions. It's not just someone sending you their Christmas card with the itinerary of everything that they did in the previous year, but it's an ongoing type of mutual exchange of information, ideas, and support that builds familiarity, and with that familiarity builds trust. And this is only enhanced through the referrals in your network. When you're networking and you have familiarity and trust with the people in your network, it is very easy for you to ask them for some introductions. In other words, it's not cold calling to necessarily build the referrals in your network, but it is requesting, receiving, and also giving those referrals. There is absolutely nothing worse than being networked with someone and all they do is take, or I can you introduce me to so and so, or I need. If somebody behaves in that kind of a manner, chances are you are not going to feel comfortable giving them the referrals that they are requesting. But if you have built that trust and familiarity and knowledge of each other in terms of what you can do and what you're looking for and how you can help one another, cold calling is then replaced by warm calling via referrals. And this is because there is trust in your network relationships. I cannot specify more strongly that trust is the foundation of a network. And when you have built this trust in your network relationships, you're going to be much more likely to feel comfortable making referrals. One of the big mistakes and misconceptions about networking is if I know you, then you owe me a referral or an introduction. But as you know, people are not comfortable making those types of connections unless they really understand who you are and what your motives are. Again, it goes back to trust. So all of these things, the people in your network, the balance in the network, the timing, and the referrals leads to one overriding goal, and that is the purpose of a network. And the purpose of a network is definitely not using people solely for your own needs, but instead you're helping each other to grow and succeed. And the only way that you can do this is if you engage in real, authentic, two-way, mutually beneficial, and respectful relationships with the people who are in your network. The real purpose of a network is not to say, hey, this is somebody I know, but instead to say, these are people whom I trust. So when we talk about networking, there are some new definitions, and this is the definition that I have developed. My father used to say to me, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, my father was World War II generation, and maybe that's the way things were back then. But it was also a manufacturing paradigm. Today, we are in an information-driven, service-focused environment. And it is no longer who you know in order to get ahead, but instead these three things. It's what you know and who you know, and finally, how you can help that matters. What you know is based on your areas of expertise, and people will become aware of who you are and what you specialize in. It's who you know in terms of the connections that you have that are based on trust and emotional relationships. And finally, it's how you can help. And the only way you can help someone in your network is by aggressively listening and applying creativity and the willingness to help and assist each other. And again, networking is a two-way street. So if you're listening, you're being creative, and you're willing to help the people in your network, they are going to be much more likely to listen and creatively help you to achieve your goals. Good luck.